Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is the demo video for those of you who want to start our final project and paint the eye digitally and use Photopea to do so. So what we're going to do is we're going to start in photopea.com and we're going to go open from computer. You're going to find the file that I sent you, which should already be a Photoshop document, a .psd. So that'll be your name, final.psd, and you're going to go ahead and choose that. What you should see in front of you is the black and white version of the eye. There's a grid. You have your color bars on each side. I have for green values or red values. And then you have another rectangle over here, which is going to be our working area. So we're going to have it just like we did with the apple, where we have our photo and we have our painting next to it. Now, you can see I put a grid on this. And I put a grid on this for the people who wanted to do this in pencil. But obviously for the rest of you, it really doesn't make sense to do this in pencil. And let me just kind of shrink my window a little bit. It just readjusted on me and it doesn't fit quite as nicely as I'd like. So let's just make sure we can see everything. So right now you should see my toolbar. You've got our working station, and then you already have the document in layers for you. And I'm just going to go through that really quick since it's a Photoshop document. What we want to do is we want to get rid of this grid. We don't need it if we're painting digitally. So you can select that layer and we can just go to the trash can and just delete it. And that way we just have our picture. And now we're going to set up like we've set up in the past. We want to kind of, just like we made a basic shape for the apple, we're going to make a basic shape for the eye. And I know this is the dreaded pen tool that everybody hates so much, but we're going to give it our best shot again. So I'm going to select my pen tool, and you're going to notice that the pen tool pops up over here. You've got shape, you've got fill, and you've got stroke. And what I'll tell you is, let's put a stroke around this. And you can make the stroke whatever color you want. If it's easier for you to see, you can keep it as red. But what I would do is I would kind of make that stroke a little bit smaller. I would make it just 1 point. And if you can't use the slider, I'm just going to press 1 in there and make it 1 point. And then for the fill, I'm going to make it blank. I think this is a much easier way to work. So the first things first, I'll kind of pick a corner. Doesn't matter which corner, but I'm going to click. And then again, you don't want to try to make your curve the entire thing, but you also don't want to keep your anchor points too close. So I click, I'm holding, and I'm going to drag. You zoom in a little bit so you can see a little bit more of what I'm doing. So I'm going to click, hold and drag, click, I'm holding and dragging. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to just outline that edge of the eye. And the eyelid. Okay, and you know, you could see over here, you could see your format. If you click off of this onto another layer, you can see you have that thin red line. All right, if you don't like some of the bumps or some of the things that's happening on the line, you can always go to your direct select tool, and you can always try to find, you click on the shape layer, you can look for those little points and you can kind of adjust them and change them. So the most important thing is that you get your first pen outline out there, and then if you don't like your outline, you can always go to the direct select tool. That is the white arrow, not the black one. And click on direct select tool, and then while you're on that shape layer, you can go in there and make adjustments and sort of fix things and kind of get them to where you want them to be. So I'm going to make a few little adjustments here on my daughter's eyeball and just kind of get it to be a little bit closer. And what you're seeing is I'm just clicking on those individual points that are there, and when I click on them with the direct selection tool, I get the handles back out, and that way I can kind of mess with my handles over there. So we're going to go from there, we're going to go to our shape tools. All right, so this is a new thing that we're doing over here. So I've already created shape 1. I'm going to put it and just call this one eye outline. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down. You have that pen tool, the direct selection tool. Now we have these other tools, and one of them is called the rectangle, and this one is called the ellipse. The ellipse is our circular tool, so we're going to select that. And you can see it's already set up with the same fill, stroke, and everything else like that. Now, what are we going to do over here? Well, we're going to try to make some circles or ellipses and ovals so we don't have to redraw this stuff out. How am I going to do that? Well, now that I have my ellipse tool, you can see I have a sort of plus sign. I want to kind of work towards, you know, clicking and dragging, and you see I'm clicking and dragging and I'm creating an oval. All right, it's not going to be a perfect circle over there, but what I want to do is kind of come up with an oval that sort of fits in there. You see a new shape has been made, and that shape is that new red circle. If I switch off of it, you see my little red outline. All right, and I'm going to call that one the pupil. Now, let's just say you made it and you didn't quite like where the placement of it was. Like I didn't quite get it exactly. Well, if I didn't like where I placed that circle, I can always, while I'm on this layer, click the Move tool, which is our first one, and I can click and kind of move it around and drag it, okay? If I didn't get the right size, the size I wanted, that's a little bit different. I might want to just then delete it, or I could sort of adjust it in a different way. So let's just say I'm going to make another circle over here, and I'm going to go to my ellipse tool and just say like, all right, I've made my circle, but I don't really feel like it is where I need it to be. And that's my new, like, you know, I'll call that one fake pupil. I didn't quite get it where I wanted to be. So here I'm going to use the Move tool to kind of move it into place. And now I see like it's where I want it to be. Let's just say I wanted to make it a little bit bigger or smaller. Here's a little trick that I can show you. While you have the Move tool, you can go up here on the Move tool options. You can see Transform Controls. And when you click Transform Controls, you see that boundary box pops up over the shape. And that boundary box allows you to go click the corners and literally transform it. So since I made a second circle, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of use that second circle to set up my iris, the color part of my eye. And the iris is going to be bigger and cover more area than what you see in the picture. Some of it's going to be hiding behind the lid, and that's fine. All I want to do is create a circle for myself over here that I can work. Again, I'll show you how to use these things later on. So if you're making your pupil or you're making your iris and you're using our ellipse tool and you're making an oval or a circle, if you make it and you don't like where it's placed or you don't like its size, we can go to the Move tool, and not only can we move it around by selecting the Move tool, we can also resize it by adjusting and hitting on the Transform Controls on the Move tool, and you can see that makes it over here. So I kind of like that one, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename that one Iris so I don't have to redo that afterwards. All right, so those are some options over there. And again, as you can see, I've done the outline of the eye, separating the eye from the eyelid. All right, so just that white part of the eye. I've made another circle, okay, for my pupil, the black area in the middle. And I've made another one for the iris, and realized that the iris is most likely going to be a circle that overlaps this outline. You can see a space between the iris and the white of the eye here, but there isn't here. It overlaps, and that is okay. These circles and these shapes that we're making right now are not going to be things that we keep in the grand sense of this thing. I'm going to do one more shape here. I'm going to go back to my pen tool, and I really only want to outline my edges. And here I do have an edge on my lid. All right, and the crease, that fold of the lid, it'll be much more helpful to me to have one of these lines there for purposes for later on. So I'm going to just call that shape the eyelid. And then after that, this is kind of an edge, but it's not really as sharp as that fold. I'm not, once again, just like I said with the drawing on paper, I'm not going to do my eyelashes yet. We will have eyelashes in the picture, but we don't need them right now. But for right now, all we need in this image is really just those outlines. And I'm going to just zoom back in for us a little bit. And you could see if I get rid of my background, well, I'll keep my background and I get rid of this, you can see what I've done so far. And that's really where my picture is at. I have an outline for the eye, I have an outline for the iris and the pupil, and an outline for the lid. If you have any real other shapes, and the eyebrow is not something we're going to worry about right now. We'll do the eyebrow later. The eyebrow will be one of the last things we do. It will be kind of like the stem. When we put the stem on the tomato or the apple, will be the finishing touch kind of thing. But if you have any other real edges or creases, you can always make a line for them with the shape tool. And what I recommend is that you label those things. And once you have it this far, like what you see I have over here, and I'll just make the rest of it appear again. All right, we're set. Now, what I can do with the move tool is that I can get rid of transform controls. I'll hit over here, I'll go to my area and I'll make sure like the eyelid is selected. My iris is selected. I'm holding down shift and I'm clicking on multiple layers. And you can see I'm holding down shift and clicking. I've clicked and selected all of my shapes, not my photo, but all my shapes. And you should have the photo layer that's down over there, that should already be invisible. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag this over to this side. And while I'm dragging it over, I'm also going to hold down shift. All right. And once I have it on the other side, I'm going to leave it there. I can make my other little picture appear. And I have a start here of the drawing that I'm going to need for later on for painting. And at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go File and save it as a PSD and have that go down to my downloads window. So that is how to get started digitally. All right, it's a little bit of work. I mean, it took me about 10 minutes. But again, if you set yourself up like this, it's setting yourself up for success. And again, remember, use the direct selection tool to fix sort of unsightly curves. Use the shape tool down here, the ellipse tool, to make your circles in here. Use the move tool to resize things by using the transform control and to move it across, and use the visible tool, the eyeball, to make things pop up and reappear and disappear. And again, make sure you save it as a PSD.